she's staring at.
Mega Man 5, released in 1994 for Game Boy and the final Mega Man title to grace the vintage Game Boy. And before anyone brings it up, Mega Man Extreme is a Game Boy Color game that's backward compatible with the Game Boy. If you want to count that as the last entry, fine, but I don't, so let's move on. And since this is a 1994 Game Boy release, that means Mega Man 5 features Super Game Boy compatibility, which means a fancy border and some enhanced color palettes. But since we're playing this on the Nintendo Switch Online Game Boy gimmick, which does not support Super Game Boy features, we'll have to unfortunately settle for the Game Boy Pocket palette, which is what we've been going with this entire run. I never cared for Game Boy Color's take on colorizing the old stuff, and the OG palette looks too puke green for my taste, so this is the nice balance we're going with, unless someone builds a time machine to save all the code Capcom lost ages ago, so we could get that Mega Man Mania Game Boy Advance thing that was promised and never came to be, but I digress. So Mega Man 5 is an interesting beast of a game. Unlike previous entries which just recycled bosses from the NES games, Mega Man 5 has a new set of 8 Robot Masters for you to tackle dubbed the Star Droids, each one named after a planet in our solar system. And also Pluto. But even though we have all new bosses, the format remains the same. You face off against 4 early on, defeat them, gain their weapons. You'll unlock a mini-stage that pits you against another devil boss, the only one on the Game Boy line, imagine that, before facing off against the remaining 4 Star Droids in their levels. Defeat them to challenge the leader Terra, defeat him to gain his weapon, and tackle the final Wily levels because there's really no point in keeping this all a mystery. So in addition to new bosses, Mega Man 5 introduces new tools of the trade, including a new weapon in the form of the Mega Arm, which replaces the traditional charge shot with a hard knuckle-like fist attack. Longer you charge, the more distance it covers, but not that much. It's something different, and to its credit, the Mega Arm can be enhanced with upgrades purchased from the shop, which makes it a return from Mega Man 4 and operates in pretty much the same fashion. Collect P-chips in the field and spend them on items from various tanks to one-ups the energy balancers and Mega Arm upgrades. Mega Man also starts off with a new ally, Tango the Cat, original character Do Not Steal. Tango offers 2 things. First off, it allows Mega Man to shoot up to 4 lemons on screen as opposed to the usual 3, which is okay. But by holding the B button for a bit and letting go, Mega Man will replace one of those lemons with Tango, who will roll up into a ball and start crashing into any enemy it comes across. So it's sort of like Beat, except a cat instead of a bird. Of course, you'll attain Rush Coil and Rush Jet after defeating certain Star Droids, and they operate as they always did since Mega Man 3 on this Game Boy line. There are also 4 alien crystals you can uncover in the second set of Star Droid levels that will enable you to reduce your weapon consumption by half, which is nice to have. Mega Man 5 follows the groundworks of Mega Man 4 specifically, and adds a bunch of fresh material to work with. New bosses, new enemies, new stages, new gimmicks, new weapons. A whole new and unique Mega Man adventure within that familiar 8-bit Game Boy style, and that's usually what makes this one a favorite among those who have played it. It's not entirely new though. Mega Man 5 does throw you the Game Boy's only devil fight, and in the last stretch of the game, you'll have to contend with rematches with all the previous Mega Man killers. And also Quint and his pogo stick. There's a sense of finality in this end stretch as though to say this is the end of an era, and for a time it easily could have been that, since Mega Man 5 was the last 8-bit game to be around for a while. At least until a decade later when we get Mega Man 9, but that's another story entirely. 5 games into this Game Boy line, and Mega Man 5 is fairly old hat by this point. Despite the new stuff, gameplay is still familiar fare, the control is tight and responsive, and there's still the occasional slowdown, which is to be expected by this point. The weapons you earn here are a varied mix of useful and situational. Grab Buster is useful for siphoning off small health boosts off most foes when you need it. Bubble Bombs are a decent vertical shot and not much else. Deep Digger is just another super arm. Yippee. Also, I didn't bring this up in the last game since technically this debuted there, but I'm not a fan of this password setup with 3 different icons and stuff. I think it's a bit convoluted. Mega Man X had the right idea with its password system, but whatever. It's the last one anyway, what does it matter? Mega Man 5 looks like Mega Man. By the 5th game, there's not much else to say there. There's a bunch of new stuff in it that fits in nicely with the usual 8-bit style. I like the scaling effect for the shooter segment, I like the little cutscenes. The levels look a bit samey with all the interiors, maybe a couple exterior spaces in space and outdoors, but other than that, eh. The game does follow the same style of presentation for the most part. Some would be fine with that, others would consider it stale, but at least it's consistent. Audio-wise, well, the only thing recycled from the previous game are some of the sound effects to go along with some of the new sound effects introduced here, but not a whole lot new in that regard. However, Mega Man 5 does sport an entirely new collection of tunes to go along with all the other new stuff, and yeah, I wouldn't go so far to say they saved the best for last. Mind you, there's some decent tunes here and there, and the soundtrack as a whole is nice and varied. There are some upbeat tunes, some tense and mysterious tunes, and some, like the boss tune, is a giant mallet to the old eardrums. I don't know, it's fine I guess, but nothing that really sticks to mind afterwards. Overall, Mega Man 5 ended the Game Boy line with a bit of a bang, I think. Building on the advancements of the previous entry, they pulled out all the stops in making this a noteworthy end of an era. Whole new set of levels, Robot Master and Toolkit make up the most ambitious of the 5 titles and quite possibly results in one of the best games in the classic lineup overall. Its high asking price makes this a hard get for the common folks, but with the recent NSO release of all 5 games, hence the revisiting of all these things in the first place, it's your best chance of giving this and all the other games in this series another look because they are worth a shot or two. And while some would have preferred a proper Legacy Collection release of these things, since it would probably reach more consoles this way, just the fact that they're available in some fashion makes me a bit happy, because these games really do deserve to be enjoyed by more people. And yes, that includes the much maligned second game in this series.